Hello everyone, and welcome back to Full Recovery. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the best friendship of marriage, and today we'll be watching part 2. And I want to thank my husband again for being willing to record one of our songs for that video, and we had fun doing that. Well, I had fun doing that, and I hope you enjoyed it. Today we're going to finish up this lesson on marriage, the relationship between David and Jonathan, and of course, no, I'm not relating that to the relationship they had as any way except a very strong friendship and bond. But as we found out in the first part, that some of the wording that David uses to describe his relationship with Jonathan should make every one of us as wives perk up a bit, and it should be our goal to not have our husbands be able to say that about anybody else besides us as their wives. It's been a few episodes since I've shared with you a little life hack that I have learned, and maybe everybody has heard about this item except for me until recently, but I do feel that what I'm about to share with you has made just great improvement in the look of my skin and the way I feel, especially on my face and hands. But that is this little item right here, which is a jade roller. If you're like me and you first heard about these, you probably thought, that's a waste of money. But I found one that was really inexpensive, and I thought, I'm gonna give it a try. And it has done wonders for me, I think. If you think otherwise, don't tell me. But keep it in the refrigerator so it stays nice and cold. And every morning, I just go over my face like this a few times, especially under my eyes. I can have a tendency to not look super rested when I wake up, especially if you are an early riser. You may not always look as rested as you may feel. But I use it especially under my eyes, and the cold just feels so good. And I do it all over my face and down my neck. I even use it on my hands, the back of my hands. It does a lot to release the excess pockets of fluid that have collected under your skin. It does a lot for stimulating your skin cells, and it just gives you a glow, and I enjoy it. And it was not a waste of those few dollars. And I've been using mine now for probably a year, and I've just really enjoyed it. So I thought I'd pass that on to you. And now let's jump right into the second part of the best friendship of marriage. Next, Jonathan loved David as his own soul. Jonathan initiated the covenant because he loved David as much as he loved himself. Jonathan took the initiative in their relationship and made sure David felt safe. Does your husband's heart feel safe with you? Do you take the initiative in the relationship, or does he always have to make the first move? So many times husbands get discouraged because they are always the one that have to be the initiator. I've pointed out to both of our girls and many times in public forums, but sometimes we'll watch those Hallmark movies, or we'll see stories like that, and boy, those guys have been to acting classes, and they know just what to say, they know just what to do. And we wonder why our guy doesn't know how to do that. We have just one of those regular guys. and they haven't taken acting classes, and they don't know all the ins and outs of romance. And maybe they weren't taught or shown how to do it by watching a loving dad and mom relationship. And so we, instead of taking the initiative ourselves, we just get angry and we sulk and we compare him to somebody else's husband. You don't know what's going on in somebody else's home. Never compare. If you have a good man who loves the Lord and loves you and is hardworking, takes care of you, and is loving and caring and kind and all of those things, don't wish that he could be like somebody else. You don't know what's going on in their home. I'll never forget a few years ago, I had someone that every so often would come with a new tennis bracelet, a diamond tennis bracelet, or a new outfit, or a new car on one occasion, just all these very expensive things. And I was a little bit, like, man, all I get's like flowers and my favorite candy bars sometimes. What's going on? And I started to realize, you know what? There's things going on in that home that I wouldn't ask for in a million years. I'll take the man who brings me flowers, a bouquet of flowers and my favorite candy bar, because he's good to me and kind and loving. And that makes me want to initiate showing love to him. Don't make him always make the first move. You initiate it. You let him know that you love him. Next, Jonathan stripped himself of his robe and gave it to David. That kingly robe represented Jonathan's future. By taking it off, Jonathan said, I know I will never be king because God wants you on the throne, David. Do you sit on the king's throne and fight for your autonomy and your marriage? It's been widely said a husband's throne is leadership and a wife's throne is influence. And I believe that that's so. I believe that there is one person responsible to God for how our family proceeds in life. But that leadership throne looks awfully attractive sometimes, and we are tempted to think, oh, I could do it better. But there comes a time where you have to realize he is actually the person God wants to communicate with him about it. And my throne is influence. And who has the greater power? I'm not sure. I think day to day that kind of changes a little bit. And so that's why you have to realize it's not about power. Our marriages aren't supposed to be power trips or power struggles. There is one person that will answer to the Lord, but I can sure have a great influence on the way things are run and done and the way we operate. And that's why, above all, I need to have my own spiritual walk with the Lord so that I can be the great influence that I'm supposed to be. The word help me is not in the Bible. I can hear the gasps already. The truth is, there is no word help meet. It is two words. God said, I will make him an help meet for him. Two words, two separate meanings. It's not a title. Each of us as wives are supposed to be a help meet or up to the challenge of what we've been asked to do. I want to be a help in every way I can to Joe Bassick. I want to be up to the challenge of that. And that has meant different things in different areas of life, even through the different times of our lives. But I want to be up to that challenge. I want to be the help meet for him. I want to be a strong spiritual influence because that's important to do my job well. And I don't want to kick him off his throne because he's the one that God wants there. When my husband and I got married, I wrote a song and sang it to him as a surprise. And he didn't know about it till I walked out and started singing, and the look on his face was like, she's doing all the wrong things. But then the last line of the song is, for the rest of forever, my heart will be your throne. I will always be yours and yours alone. And my husband has been the king of my heart for 28 years almost. I don't want to take over on him. I want him to lead and guide and direct. And he does a wonderful job at that. Next, Jonathan gave David his garments. David was a shepherd boy. Jonathan was a prince. Jonathan had nicer clothes, but he wanted to make sure that David had the best. Do you look like you just stepped out of a magazine while your husband looks like a hobo? Now I can tell you, I have seen it all in the 26 years of our church. We've had all kinds of people come through, missionaries, evangelists, business people. And I can tell you that the consensus among many wives is, oh, my husband doesn't even care how he looks. I just beg to differ with that. I disagree. When our son Joey was born, I saw right away that he understood as he grew the difference between play clothes, work clothes, and church clothes. And work clothes, he didn't care. If he was going to go work out on the van with Pop or work outside mowing the lawn with Daddy, he didn't care how he looked. But play clothes, not too much difference, except that, play clothes didn't always have, or casual clothes, I guess I should say, didn't have the grease spots and all of that. Church clothes, that was different. He wanted to look sharp. And I probably had more fun shopping for him even than the girls, although that was fun too. But there was something about picking out boy clothes. I read years ago how that when Queen Victoria of England married Prince Albert, and of course it was somewhat of an arranged marriage, but she loved him, she adored him, and he loved her. And she would lay out his clothes every single day. And he died a few years before she did. She missed him and loved him so much that she continued to lay out his clothing every day. And I can tell you that every day that I have been married, I have laid out and prepared my husband's clothing. He doesn't ever think about what he's going to wear. He likes to look nice, but he likes me to pick it. And he enjoys that. But if his clothing is a reflection of me, how I take care of it, how I launder it. And I want him to look great. I don't want him to have buttons missing from clothing or stains on everything. I want him to look sharp, and he enjoys it. And I think that's how most men are. But I've seen an awful lot of wives who look like $1 million, and her husband has to fend for himself. Now, maybe that's how he wants it. I know there are a lot of men who say, I'll pick out my own clothes, and that's great, but still, they shouldn't look shabby. Buy him a new shirt once in a while. Buy him a new tie if he wears them. New pair of jeans or pants. Don't make him wear scuffed shoes all the time. And I know he's going to say, you shouldn't spend money on that. But they enjoy wearing new things. And Jonathan made sure that David's garments were great. Next, Jonathan gave David his sword. Jonathan handed David his greatest defensive weapon. This was not a sign of Jonathan's weakness. This was a sign of ultimate respect for David's greatness. Do you carve up your husband's manhood like a swashbuckling pirate? Or do you understand that it takes the greater strength to refrain and hold back? My husband and I made the decision early on in our marriage, before we ever had children, that they would never hear us slice each other up. And we just don't do that. We don't engage in that. Have we had disagreements? Sure. Plenty of them. We are different people. But I don't use my greatest defensive weapon to do him harm. Personal attacks. We don't engage in those things. We fight fair. In fact, I would tell you, one of the greatest tools we use in our marriage, and I think it honestly, in an unknowing way or in an unforeseen way, has helped us to not face the day-to-day stress that a lot of couples face. But we play fight a lot. We tease each other a lot, but it's never pointed. It's never nasty. It's never personal. Don't engage in those things. Keep that offensive weapon in check. I know you know how to use it. We're women. We're smart. Of course we know how to drop a bomb. But there's no need to do that. No need to engage in that. Next, Jonathan gave David his bow. The bow is a long distance weapon. Do you have your husband's back, or does your bow find its way there? I'm sure when Jonathan used that bow and arrow, sometimes if he was in the heat of battle, he would just launch it and just hoping it hit a target. And I think that's the way a lot of wives operate. He can be defenseless in an area. We know it. And we use that to tear him apart. Just tear him down. And even we'll store up information. Hold on to stories from long ago that we said we forgave. And we'll bring it back up because we just want to level him. And we know how to do it when he doesn't even see it coming. Shame on us for doing that. We don't fight fair. And I mean, my own self, I've struggled, at any given moment, there's a good 50 or so thoughts or comebacks going on up there. And in my younger days, I would have just pick and shoot. And you have to learn that, no, you're not stronger because you can do that. You're weaker because you can do that. The strong one holds it in. The strong one talks about it civilly with respect for the other person, not looking to do damage to that person. Daniel 6:2 has always been one of my verses for marriage. Just the last phrase, really. And the king should have no damage. I believe it's 6:2, might be 6:3, but I think it's 6:2. And the king should have no damage. It's my goal to not have him suffer damage at my hand. I don't need to take away his manhood or his masculinity. I'm damaging my own self if I do that. And no damage from me is the goal. I've not been perfect at it, but it's what I have striven to do. Lastly, Jonathan gave David his girdle. The girdle was the closest thing to Jonathan's skin, the closest clothing. Removing it made him vulnerable. Do you have your defense mechanisms up and running at any given moment in case he hurts you? Do you hurt him first so that you feel secure, so that you feel like, okay, good, he won't hurt me now because I already got him? I address this thing many times in life in general, but especially in marriage, because I think a lot of times we bring things into it that we've never really dealt with. And those hurts, those past issues can really flare up, especially in heated moments. And instead of baring our souls and saying, okay, the reason I feel this way or act this way is because I was hurt in this way, we will keep building up walls or launching our own attacks instead of letting our husbands be that close where we admit, I'm just hurting. We'll go on the attack. We need to take those areas that are the most exposing to us, those areas of our heart that only God knows about. And we need to really talk about those things and air those things out. And here's why. If we don't, there will always be something between us. David received that girdle from Jonathan, knowing that's everything. Jonathan has nothing left to give me. What confidence he had in that relationship. It's no wonder he said his love passed that selfish, needy love of a woman. What a giver Jonathan was. When you think about these things in these two verses that Jonathan gave, that's why David could say, wow, he really loves me. 3 wives David had had at this point, but Jonathan's love passed theirs. Jonathan wanted only the absolute best for his friend David. And he made sure David knew that. You know, it's so, something will be wrong and our husbands will say, what's wrong? Nothing. And then we get mad at them for not knowing. And the truth is, should they know? Probably. Probably it's over something very obvious, but it's obvious to us. And if you're married to a real man, he probably sees things in very black and white terms, very cut and dry terms. So sometimes they need things spelled out. But Jonathan didn't wait for that. He just put it all out there and made sure David understood how he felt. This is a perfect time, after this time of quarantine, this is a perfect time to refocus on that man that we have chosen as our best friend for life. And I mean friend in the truest sense, that loyalty, that unconditional love, devotion, best friend for life. Take your weapons, your defense mechanisms, and your desires, and give them over to him. He will live every day with the knowledge that his wife is his absolute best friend, and no other human being can surpass the love and loyalty that you offer him. I hope your marriage from now on will be everything that you dream it is, but we all know it doesn't get there without work and focus and drive and determination, lots of love, and a close spiritual walk with the Lord and investigation of this book. May the relationship that Jonathan demonstrated to David be an example for all of us as wives. Thank you for watching.